That was great. I hope you enjoyed that. OpenAI is being adopted at an accelerated rate across Asia, with significant business growth reported for ChatGPT just this year. The company announced in May that they will be opening a new office in Seoul, their third in Asia, to support this rising demand. As OpenAI races to scale, monetize, and partner responsibly around the world, we're going to talk to one of the people leading the charge to take the company's global strategy from big ideas to real results. Please welcome OpenAI International Managing Director Oliver Jay and Fortune AI editor Jeremy Kahn.
Great. Oliver, thanks for joining us. And thanks everyone for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. As one of the speakers on the last panel said, you just had the announcement this past week that one of your models, not yet released, has gotten gold on the International Mathematics Olympiad, and that announcement was followed very soon by Google DeepMind saying that it too also had an unreleased model that had scored gold on that at the IMO. Which is a huge breakthrough. I mean, nobody really thought that this was going to happen. Google DeepMind had been trying with very specific systems to score gold on that competition and hadn't quite done it yet. And now you have essentially a general system from both of these companies that have accomplished that. I wanted to ask you, that's pretty impressive reasoning capabilities. And in making that announcement, it was also OpenAI said that GPT-5 will be coming soon. So what I wanted to ask, how quickly will these kind of very advanced reasoning capabilities get into products, and what do you see that meaning for business?
Yeah, you're right. The reasoning capabilities have evolved dramatically, and it's super advanced. Right? And to get gold with a general model is in an International Math Olympiads is really quite an accomplishment. For us, we certainly have a very, very strong research lab, and it is also part of our ethos to bring that technology into the market as fast as possible, which is why you see the pace of innovation to be really rapid in products like ChatGPT. For us, that's part of our ethos because we think that is actually the secret to our pace of innovation, is we get our best research, and when we feel it's safe and responsible, we bring it to the market for consumers, to businesses, and through their usage, we learn and we iterate and we get better, which is why we just launched also Agent in ChatGPT. Right? A couple of months before that, we launched Deep Research. A couple of months before that, it was connectors, or after that. So for us, it really is about getting the best intelligence into the hands of people as fast as possible. Yeah,
we were talking about this a little bit backstage, but how do you when you work with businesses, how do you get them to think about this pace of innovation? I think a lot of people, for a lot of companies, the speed at which this is moving is actually kind of problematic. They're kind of stunned by it and don't quite know how to react or where to start, and they're sort of afraid if they go down one path, they're going to be locked in and miss the next innovation. How do you counsel businesses and customers of OpenAI to think about this incredible pace of innovation?
Yeah, it's something we think about a lot, and I think every company has to go on a journey. Right? The first question we think about is do you believe that AI has the power to transform the business? And if that is the case, you would understand that every workflow, the surface area for transformation is very, very wide. And so for us, something we encourage a lot for companies to think about is really to take multiple bets. Right? One is what's the short-term bet? And the most obvious one right now is internal productivity. Right? Every single person in a company can get massive leverage, right, with things like ChatGPT Enterprise. One of the benefits of adopting a tool like that is, to your earlier question, right, you get to ride the wave of AI. So every time we have a new breakthrough, your employees actually are the first to try it. They have the agency to learn and try and innovate with it. And a lot of times, a lot of companies, what we find is the employees who identify, right, through the use of newer and newer features, that they realize, hey, there's this amazing opportunity to actually go even bigger, right, in terms of building a solution and such. And so for us, it really is around helping companies understand there's actually a cost to waiting,
Right.
There are some no-brainer things to do right now, right away, and the best thing to do is actually to ride the wave and not wait for like the perfect moment to jump in.
Got it. I want to tell the audience I'm going to come to you guys for questions shortly, so please think of your questions. OpenAI said that 2025 is the year of international expansion. You're helping to oversee this effort. In Asia, you've opened offices in Seoul and Tokyo this year, in addition to the office you already had in Singapore. What's enterprise adoption looking like, particularly in Southeast Asia and Asia more broadly?
The growth has been astonishing, right? A lot of times people might forget ChatGPT only launched about 2.5 years ago, and now we have well over 500 million active users, and that user base is very, very global, Asia being the biggest portion of that user base. So we're seeing tremendous growth. What's driving it? Certainly there's that organic usage from consumers, but consumers are also bringing it into work. And so we're seeing tremendous uptake in businesses. We have now 3 million businesses using ChatGPT for work. That's just up from 2 million earlier this year. And so we're really seeing that kind of growth, and which is why we're opening offices all over to better serve customers. Today, we're really excited to announce that we're working with the Singapore Tourism Board. Really excited to explore with them, really think about reimagining the visitor experience in Singapore. We're looking at advanced marketing insights to understand how do you think about targeting segments. We're thinking about like driving and building a more personalized experience for visitors with all the different businesses involved in tourism here. And we're even we will be exploring the intersection of robotics and AI, right? So like this is a good example, I think, where Singapore has always been on the forefront of innovation, and we're very excited to partner and cover really interesting and impactful use cases for the region.
That's great, and that's some news announced here from the stage, I guess, on that partnership with the Singapore Tourism Board, and those are really interesting use cases. I know OpenAI has said that it may be moving towards a model originally sort of pioneered by Palantir of having what they're called forward deployed engineers. These are engineers who are going to go out to customer sites, kind of work very closely with a customer on building solutions. Can you talk about why you might be moving in that direction, what the strategy is there in terms of this kind of model when you go to market?
Yeah, 2024, last year, we got it was like the year of like POCs. Every country, every company got in and dipped their toes in, and they started POCs. Sometimes over 100 POCs we heard, right? And this is like POC hell. So the hardest thing about AI is actually is actually taking the same paradigm you have during the cloud era, which is, okay, let me create a sandbox, let me wire things up. If it works, then press play, deploy. AI just doesn't work like that, right? As you scale, you need advanced techniques to set guardrails, to evaluate the accuracy of the models, et cetera. And so this is where we saw the biggest gap in companies. It was like the POC to production funnel, it was very, the conversion was very low. And so we worked with a few early customers, pilot customers, because of what I said earlier, we like to deploy and learn from the field. And through that process, we learned a lot of techniques, advanced techniques about how to get models into production. And so this new model for us, hiring our own engineers to help deploy for our largest projects, is something that we see as a really strategic way to advance the acceleration of advanced AI into scaled production use cases.
Great. Let's go to the audience for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll get a mic to you. If you don't have questions, I've got tons, so I'll carry on. I don't see any hands right now, so I'm going to quickly carry on. You guys are too sleepy this morning. So you operate all over the world, and you have very different ideas about governance and governance regimes in different parts of the world. I live in the UK, which is no longer part of the EU, but I'm close to Europe. In the EU, they just have the EU AI Act that's coming into force, and as part of that, there's this code of practice for general purpose AI models, which would cover the models that OpenAI builds. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that OpenAI from some things that said it might oppose that or lobby against that code of practice. But actually, you guys came out and said, no, we're going to sign it, and we think it's a good thing. I know in this region, you guys were very instrumental in helping to create what's the Singapore Consensus on AI safety. Can you talk a little bit about how OpenAI is looking at AI governance internationally? Where is there opportunities for harmonization, and where do you feel like you can live with these regional differences?
Sure. Look, I think every country has their own values and priorities as it comes to regulations, and our job is to be here and to listen. At OpenAI, we believe in the value of engagement. AI is a complicated technology, and we think it's really through partnerships. That's how we will get to the right balance in terms of regulations, right? So that people can get the value of AI, but it's also deployed responsibly. And so that's why we signed. For us, we've always led with engaging in partnership, and so this is when I fly around the world talking to governments, that's the approach we take, and that is why we launched recently this program called OpenAI for Countries. It's a program that it's not really an equation. We're not going to every country and saying, hey, this is how you accelerate AI. It's really a program where we partner with countries on a national level to think about how can we accelerate each country's own priorities on AI, right? For some countries, countries with abundance of natural resources, a lot of times we're talking about infrastructure.
Right.
Right? How do you build enough inference compute for future generations, right? So you're not reliant on anyone else. For other countries, it's much more programmatic. We have some countries like Estonia and others in the mix right now where it's around education. How do we accelerate the adoption of AI or embed that into the education? For others, it's healthcare. We're in a number of conversations with the Singapore government right now.
Right.
So that's what we see is like the countries are leaning in, not like from a regulatory perspective, but they're really also thinking about how can they accelerate their own national priorities with AI.
Interesting. You mentioned you have 500 million active weekly users. There's some numbers floating out there about how quickly that's growing. But I know you have 3 million sort of paying enterprise customers also. How do you strike the balance between being a consumer tech company versus being an enterprise technology company? You're trying to do both, but how does that work internally, and where's the emphasis, do you think, going forward?
For us, we see a user as a user. Much like there are many people here who probably use an iPhone, right? You use an iPhone at work, you use an iPhone at home. We don't really see the world as bifurcated that way, right? And our approach is like we want to build the best super assistant for you to use at home and at work, right? And actually, this is a big part of our core strategy is winning over the hearts of consumers, because what we see with enterprise adoption of software, a lot of times enterprises struggle with adoption of software, and that's like the worst. You budget, you do all this training, and people don't use it at work. For us, a part of our enterprise strategy is actually to familiarize everyone with ChatGPT first. Now, there's a lot more you can do with ChatGPT in the enterprise. For example, earlier we launched connectors. So instead of just searching the web like you can do in the consumer version, it actually ties into Outlook, Microsoft Teams, Slack, SharePoint. And so now ChatGPT at work can also search through your own data, right, and come up with results and answers that are bespoke to you with the data that you have access to at work. That paradigm would be a little bit more foreign if people weren't already used to just searching right in ChatGPT on the consumer side. So for us, it's actually very integrated, and we're seeing this. And the big reason why we see the growth on the business side is because of the growth and familiarity on the consumer side.
Right. So people use it at home, then they want to use it at work. That's kind of the idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like the killer use case right now with these connectors is ChatGPT at work can every day you can tell it, hey, go read through all my emails, all my meetings for the week. Right? I do this every Monday. I get a report out on like all my meetings It preps all my documents,
Right.
right? And it's just one prompt.
Right. There's been some discussion about whether OpenAI is going to move into, have an AI native browser potentially that I hear you guys may be working on. There's some discussion about whether you're going to build your own sort of suite of office productivity software, which of course really expand the scope of competition. You're suddenly going to be going head to head against Google and Apple and your erstwhile partner Microsoft. Can you talk a little bit about what the strategy is there, what the plans are in terms of expanding potentially the tool set that you're building?
I feel like we compete with everybody.
Right.
I'll say it's like our approach to product development is really centric on the user. Right? When I said earlier around like we'd like to get a product out there as soon as possible so that we can react to it. I'll give you one example around search. Right? Like we didn't build search because we wanted to necessarily go after the search market, but what we saw from users was they wanted agents. And agents, what do they need? They need to go out and find information sometimes. That's why we built search. So that's how we think about it. It's very user-centric. So whether we think about a browser, whether we think about whatever tools, it will really be coming from a perspective of really understanding how we think users in the future will interact with work. What is the role of AI in that world? And then what is the right surface area for that?
Right.
So that's how we think about our product development.
Got it. Got it. Obviously, there's been one of the big things that's happened in the past year is DeepSeek and the rise of reasoning models that are open source, potentially cheaper to run. You can host them locally. How does OpenAI view the kind of open source competition, particularly with these very powerful models coming out of China?
What's interesting is when I fly around and talk to companies and governments, what I hear from people is that there's really rarely is it around like, hey, open versus closed, right? Everyone's really focused on like the job, the task that they're trying to solve, and then what they want is they want the best possible models, the best possible technology to solve that, and so that's why we have a multi-pronged approach, right? We think some jobs, right, do require potentially an open source model, which is why we have announced that we are also in the process of building one and launching an open weights model, right? But ultimately for us, we're just focused 100% on, hey, how can we help companies solve that problem? And it's really rarely a question of open or closed.
Interesting. You guys have Codex, a product specifically geared towards software developers. You tried to buy this company called Windsurf, which was building an autonomous software development agent. You lost that deal. The team from that company ended up going to Google. But can you talk a little bit about why there's such intense competition right now around coding tooling and autonomous software development agents? That seems to be like the hottest bit of this already very hot market is around developer mindshare and getting software developers to use your product. Why is that?
Look, the first thing I'll say is like developers have always been the part of the lifeblood of OpenAI. Right? We have millions of applications being built on our models. You mentioned we launched Codex. Like we will continue to build great tools for developers. To your question around coding and why is it so important, there's a number of reasons. One that I think is super important is, well, I'll give you two. The first is, coding is one of the early use cases where AI can get very good very quickly because you have an objective output that can grade the input.
Right.
So that feedback loop can get very advanced, and so you can get very good in this task really quickly. But the reason why it's so interesting and such a strategic area to build out is coding is a tool set that agents can use, right, to, in the future, accomplish whatever task you have on the way on your AI journey. Let me give you an example. We recently launched Agent in ChatGPT. Agent can go out, give them a question, it will do deep research, it will reason over the results, it will look at your internal database, it will reason over those results, and then you may tell the agent, build me a PowerPoint presentation from what you reason over my data, right? What ChatGPT can do now is it will actually write code. It will actually write code to analyze your spreadsheets. It will build the graphs. It will put them, assemble in a spreadsheet. It could be prettier, like this is the V1.
Right.
But that part, that's the agent coding on the fly.
Right.
So you can imagine in the future, you can just say, hey, run this task, do this research, and build me an application.
Right.
The agent can do that. So this is why coding is such an important part of this journey
Yeah.
in AI, is like, with that tool, agents can do a lot.
Right. We're almost out of time, but OpenAI is growing so fast, so quickly. I mean, I'm curious what it's like to work inside this company, and to what extent is AI helping you to scale at the speed at which you're scaling? To what extent are you using your own products sort of internally to be able to accomplish the incredible rate of growth that you're experiencing?
Thank you for that question, because that is the only way we can actually catch up to our growth, because the growth is accelerating, right? Like in some markets, like Thailand and Vietnam, we're seeing 7x, 8x growth. And the only way we can do that is by leveraging AI. And so we've built a lot of tools internally to help us get that efficiency, whether it's coming back and getting back to customers sooner, even thinking all the way to like security. And how do we think about leveraging AI in our own models for cybersecurity? So we are voracious users of our own product, which is why the company actually is a very, very small company. There's only I think somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people. That's it globally. And again, the only way we can do that is by using our models like crazy.
Great. Oliver, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.